on General Laws and Technology. Senate. I'm looking at so many House members, I'm getting confused. If we could, let's have the clerk open the roll.
Kitsuas.
We have a quorum.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a large docket, so we're going to get started. First, we have an administrative action. House Bill 1496 from Delegate Rasool needs to be referred to the Courts of Justice Committee. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, all in favor of referring House Bill 1496 to Courts of Justice signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Oh, it's a recorded vote.
Ayes 9, no 0.
Okay. Now, we're going to take up some identical bills first that are identical to their Senate cognates. House Bill 1141 from Delegate Reed is identical to Senate Bill 113 from Senator Reeves on a Veterans Fellowship for State Government pilot program, and this would need to go to Finance, so the motion would be to report and refer.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to refer House Bill 141, report and refer to Finance. Please signify your preference on the voting board.
Ayes 8, no 0.
Okay. Next, we have from Delegate Delaney, HB 572, identical to Senator Hotchme's 232 on manufactured home parks.
Move to report.
Okay, there's a motion, a second to report HB 572. Please indicate your preference on the voting board. Okay. Next, I'm sorry, I'll wait for the clerk.
8-0.
Oh, get the proxy. That's right.
Okay, that bill reports. Then we've got from Delegate Marcus Simon, HB 634, identical to Senator McPike's SB 308. This has to do with rentals, allowing rentals for 30 days or longer. We passed this unanimously in committee and in the Senate.
Move to report.
Okay, motion is second to report HB 634. Please indicate your vote on the voting board.
Ayes 9, no 0.
Okay.
That bill report.
Thank you. Next, we've got HB 816 from Delegate Cherry, which is identical to Senator McPike's FOIA bill on meetings held during states of emergency through electronic communication, passed the committee and the Senate unanimously.
Move to report.
Okay, there's a motion, a second to report HB 816 and a second. Please indicate on the voting board your preference. Okay.
Ayes 9, no 0.
Okay, that bill reports. Next, from Delegate Lopez, HB 967. This is a fee disclosure statement on the Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, requiring landlords to provide a description on the first page of the written rental agreement of any rent and fees to be charged to the tenant in addition to periodic rent. It passed this committee 14 to 1 and passed the Senate 23-17.
Move to report.
There's a motion and a second to pass HB 967. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
Ayes 8, no 0.
Oh.
Okay, that bill reports.
You want to talk to me?
Okay, let's continue on with Delegate Carr's HB 1125. This is identical to Senator Locke's SB 217. It would need to go to Finance. It establishes the Business Ready Expedited Permit Program and passed the Senate and this committee unanimously. Do you cognate? Okay. Okay. The motion is to report and refer to Finance, and there's a second. So this will be HB 1125. Please indicate your preference.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. 1085 has to go to finance, so it cannot be re-referred.
Ayes 12, no zero.
Okay. Next, we've got HB 1237 from Delegate Willett, defining places of business being acceptable to use for business for realtors, which is identical to Senator Sugarline's SB 437. It passed this committee and the Senate unanimously. Okay, there's a motion, a second, to report HB 1237. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
Ayes 10, no zero.
Okay. Next, we've got, thank you. Next, we've got HB 1243 from Delegate Maldonado, which is identical to my SB 576. This was the unfair real estate service agreements for prohibiting long-term agreements to engage with a certain realtor for binding future owners of the property. And that was unanimous in this committee and the Senate.
Move to report.
Okay. There's a motion, a second, to report HB 1243. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
You get my proxy now.
Okay. Okay. Next, from Delegate Krizak had HB 1273, which I believe, is he here? Does that differ a bit from SB 647 from Senator Carol Foy with the lower threshold?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there's quite a lot of differences. Now, this is gone through the editing process, as you would put it. It's at 8% is what it's at now.
Delegate Krizak, is there a substitute here, or is that, or the way it left the House is the way we're entertaining?
It's already it's how it left the House.
Okay, so this bill would need to go to Finance if it's reported, and we did report Delegate Senator Carol Foy's more expansive version. So this requires responsible bidders can be pre-qualified using certain criteria. Is that correct?
What this would do is to promote apprenticeship, so that you would have the requirement would be that 8% of the workers on the project from the Registered Apprentice Program would be from the Registered Apprentice Program. But there's a lot of safeguards in it. It'd still have to be a written determination made in advance by the governor or his designee in the case of a procurement by the Commonwealth or by a department, agency, or institution. Also, the local governing body in the case of procurement by a political subdivision of the Commonwealth. A public body may adjust or waive the requirements for a specific capital outlay project for the following reasons: demonstrate a lack of availability of apprentices in a specific geographic area, or a disproportionately high ratio of material costs and labor hours that make the required minimum level of apprentice participation not feasible. And we put a delayed enactment till next year.
Okay, so it has a delayed enactment and a lower threshold. It passed this committee a similar version, but a little bit more
Robust.
More robust version that passed us 9-6 before going on to Senate Finance. The motion would be to report and refer to Senate Finance, and there's a motion and a second to report and refer HB 1273. Unless there's questions, please indicate your preference on the voting board.
Ayes 9, noes 5.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Thank you, Delegate. Okay, next we've got the HB 1381 from Delegate Runyon, renames the Center for Rural Virginia in honor of former Senator Ruff, which is identical to Senator Mulcahy's SB 704. We passed this unanimously previously. Is there a motion?
Move the report.
Okay, motion and a second. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Okay, now we're going to, that bill reports. Now we have similar bills. First up, from Delegate Thomas is HB 338. Is Delegate Thomas here? Okay. We heard a similar bill from Delegate Rome. I don't know if you'd like to explain how yours differs, or?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. There was an amendment on the House side that was accepted in committee and then came over. The amendment made it permissive, and on line 13 it changed it from shall to may, and then eliminated the consideration for agricultural resources.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Okay, so committee has a choice to make. This could either go to JCOTS or it could be considered differently. JLARC, I'm sorry, to the JLARC study I meant. Yeah. Is there a motion?
Move to report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, there's a motion to report HB 338. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Senator Eric.
for clarification, I just wanted to think back to how we acted on this similar bill that came before us I guess that was Senator Rome's bill. Did we not take the action of referring it to the JLARC study? And so I just wanted to clarify why we would treat this any differently.
Okay, Senator Rome, did you want to address that?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I'll also defer to the patron on this, but long story short is the bill that is in front of you today is now in a very different posture than what we had considered in this committee with my bill, which was prescriptive, and at the same time, it was very much with the intent of immediate action on this. What the delegates' bill before us does is, by having it as a may, this is no longer in a place where it is requiring all 133 localities to take a very particular type of action. And with that, I also know that in the House, other sorts of these bills were also going to JLARC, and the House made a decision to allow this bill out in particular, and I'll defer to the patron for explanation about that.
Yes, Delegate, did you have any further comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would just say that this bill is different than the other data centers, similar bills that this committee has seen, and likewise on the House, and particularly because this bill was designed to supplement the JLARC study by standardizing the data streams at which a locality would be looking at, to which JLARC would then extract data from to make determinations or recommendations. So, for example, trying to standardize across localities how they look at water, how they look at consumption, and how they look at the impact on carbon emissions. Obviously, agricultural land was removed, so that's not in the bank anymore. But as Senator Rome indicated, because of the permissive nature of the bill, I think that alleviated some of the concerns on the House side.
Okay. So the policy question is whether we differ in not sending it to JLARC or report as is. The motion that was made was to report the bill as presented to us. So unless there's further discussion, we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 10, noes 4, 1 abstention.
Okay, so that bill reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Okay. Now, the next bill from Delegate Hayes is a bill that's been heard in the Senate but not in this committee. This has to do with the skill games or gray machines. What we're going to do is the appropriate posture for this bill, if it's to report, would be to consider conforming it to Senator Rouse's SB 212 the way it left the Senate, but we did not take testimony on this committee, so I'm going to allow 5 minutes for and 5 minutes against after Delegate Hayes makes his presentation, whatever remarks you'd like to offer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and certainly I won't be long. It's just my desire as a former athlete to be not like Mike. I want to be like Aaron. In regard of this bill that I have, I would love to have this bill in the same posture as Senator Rouse's bill. On the House side, there was a substitute that was placed on my bill that made it pretty, I don't want to use the word egregious, but it's not agreeable for many of the problems that we have with the bill, with the tax rate, with the fee of $1 million, et cetera, et cetera. So in putting the bill in the same posture as Senator Rouse's bill is acceptable.
Senator Rouse.
Motion to conform.
Why don't we just hear the testimony and then we'll take our action? Can I ask this, Delegate Hayes, is there a difference in the number of machines allowed, or is that part in the age verification?
There
were those
are
the primary?
differences in the machines, and like I said, there is a list, there's a plethora of differences in this bill and Senator Rouse's bill as it left from the Senate.
Okay.
And so it's my desire
Yeah.
it would be acceptable to put it in the same posture
Well,
as.
why don't we first hear from the proponents for 5 minutes, and then we'll hear from anyone opposed for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brian Moran on behalf of the coalition.
Welcome.
To support up. Nice to be here. Didn't know testimony would be accepted, but we very much appreciate the opportunity. As you see before you, we have a number of members of a coalition. It's a diverse group: convenience store owners, restaurants, one of which is from our wonderful city of Alexandria, Hard Times Cafe. Essentially, we're here to get a bill passed that reflects the opportunity for sustainable supplemental income for these small business owners. They remained open. They had their doors open during COVID. 1 year, they were provided the opportunity to have legal skill games. ABC regulated them, and we generated over $130 million for the Commonwealth of Virginia. We want to return to that, both for the Commonwealth, but necessary revenue, but also the opportunity for these small businesses to continue to flourish in the Commonwealth. They have a number of economic pressures on them. So I don't want to take too much time. The committee, we very much appreciate Delegate Hayes and Senator Rouse carrying these bills and look forward to further negotiation before March 9th. But there are members of our coalition that I'd welcome to come to the podium and say a couple of words, if they might. Bhavin Patel, possibly, or
Why don't we
Michael
also
Conn?
why don't we have all the proponents? I see you've got people here. Why don't they stand, those that are in favor of this bill today? If you'd like to, please stand. Okay. Okay, and now if you want to continue with your testimony, please do.
Thank you very much, Senator. Mike.
Just briefly, Mike O'Connor with Virginia Petroleum Marketers and Convenience Store Association. Hadn't planned to speak. I didn't know we were going to speak today, but one of the things that has been commented on is what is the contributions of the convenience store industry. We've been subject to about $2 million of negative advertising in the past month or so. Convenience store industry, petroleum marketing industry is one of the Commonwealth's largest taxpayers. We collect and remit over $1.4 billion to the state in fuels taxes each year. So I think that is a very relevant number for the committee to consider as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us speak. Rich Kelly, Hard Times Cafe. Food's up 33 to 39%. Paper's up 28%. Wages are up 18%. Restaurants are squeezed. We really need the supplemental income from the skill machines, and it's a small business issue is really what it is. We appreciate you supporting it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman and the committee. My name is Bhavin Patel. I'm here to represent Virginia Amusement Coalition and the convenience store owners. We have about 1,000 members in our coalition, and we would like to say thank you. This bill is for small business owners, and again, we'd like to thank everybody, Senator Rouse, Senator Lucas, Delegate Hayes, so thank you. That's all I gotta say.
Good afternoon, Chairman and the members of the committee. I'm Kunal Kumar, representing Virginia Asian American Store Owner Association. Our membership is representing over 1,500 businesses and 10,000 employees all across the Commonwealth. And I will just say that this issue is probably one of the most important issues that our association has faced over the last 13 years. It is close to heart. A lot of our members are struggling since the games turned off. And, having this bill passed would be a true lifeline for many small businesses across the Commonwealth. So please do consider Senator Rouse's version of the bill. We do appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Thank you.
With a different view of the opponents. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Scott Johnson. I represent the casino down in Bristol. For time's sake, the other casino operators have asked me to share our remarks. I want to thank the patron for hearing our concerns and having an open door policy on this. But I have to tell you, we remain opposed to this legislation, and I don't want to belabor the time. You've heard from many of us directly, but I just want to share a couple of highlights here. The House bill that you have before you, I know you're getting ready to conform it, it's got more guardrails than the bill that left the Senate, but still there are some drastic shortcomings in here. When you look at casinos came in through the front door. They've invested over $1 billion in the state, thousands of direct and indirect jobs, and it's an economic commitment. This bill dilutes that investment. And if you look at your physical impact statement on the bill, there's a paragraph in there that says nothing in the physical impact statement determined the adverse impact on casinos, charitable gaming, harness horse, the other gaming that we have in Virginia. I ask you to don't ignore the issue regarding crime around these games, underage playing of these games, security, problem gambling, and lack of sufficient enforcement. So with that, we respectfully ask that you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Chris Peterson, representing Arrow International. We also oppose legalizing the gray games. They were meant to be relief. COVID's over. We don't think they need to be continued. At a minimum, we think they should be heavily regulated like all other gaming in the state. Criminal background checks, machines audited, reviewed, approved, local say as to whether you allow gambling in those jurisdictions, just like historical horse racing casinos. So we would oppose the skill games generally, but would prefer the House version that passed the House if you go forward.
Thank you. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, Todd Gacky on behalf of the Family Foundation. Regardless of which posture that the bill is in, we still remain opposed to the games of skill for the impact it will have on families, desensitization to the young minors who are around them, and the increased crime that they'll lure in. So for those reasons, we still remain opposed to the bill.
Thank you. Was there anyone waiting online to testify on either side? Okay, great. Okay, so we've heard a little bit about the bill and some of the differences. The appropriate motion would be first to consider conforming to the Senate version of the bill. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Unless there's discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the bill's conformed. So the motion would be to send it to Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee. And okay, there's a motion, and now I'm going to have in the queue. I've got Senator McPike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As this moves forward, I'm hoping both patrons, since you're both in the room, will work on a couple of different provisions, one of which is strengthening problem gaming, which in the language is pretty loose in the versions. And so as you go through the conference, making sure that right now there's fairly loose language, and there's ways to control that and make sure that underage kids do not participate, and also provide additional strengthening for store owners. And there's ways to do that in the bill in terms of player ID cards that will help the store owners make sure that there's folks that are scanning IDs, get a player ID card to activate machines. There's ways to do this in technology that will help store owners not get in trouble. That's what I'm concerned about. Also, would like to see, Mr. Chair, some contract terms durations to protect store owners, to make sure they're not locked into forever contracts, that they get renewed every 5 or 8 years so they get competition to help them to make sure that they're getting the best service. And I'd like to make sure there's at least some sort of option for local governments. All the other gaming forms have passed through referendum. There's different versions that do or do not, and hopefully in the conference report at least provides a local by ordinance or some form of having local government input to address some localities that maybe have a casino that maybe don't want. And I'm not the one to make that decision, but I'd like to see that. And strengthening the background checks and regulations. I'm hoping those 4 points will strengthen as both of these bills make it through to conference and support the motion to report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, points noted. Okay, then we'll vote on, the motion is to report and refer to Senate Finance. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Okay, that bill reports and refers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Okay, now we've got be at ease for just a moment. What? Okay, as people are exiting, if you could keep it down a little bit. We have, I skipped over House Bill 578 under the identical bills from Delegate Dolores McQuinn, which is identical to Senator Bagby's 538 on the Uniform State Building Code violations and fines. We passed that, the cognate 14-0, and it unanimously passed the Senate. So do I hear a motion on HB 578?
Second.
Okay, motion is second to report it. Please indicate your preference on the voting board. And Delegate McQuinn, I know you have to go to appropriations. You had one other bill, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
What's that?
House Bill 285, the Better Bus Stop Bill.
Okay, this bill, if it reports, would need to be referred to Finance, but why don't you tell us about House Bill 285?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, House Bill 285 actually is a bill that came back, that actually is a continuation of a bill that was in 2020, the TRIP bill, which established funds to build, to prepare better bus stops and making certain that the safety issues were addressed, making sure in terms of security and as well as bus stops that people would mind going to and know that they are protected. And what has happened is that I guess just the bureaucracy just got a little tough, and so we thought that we better come back and to see if there was another way to address it. And so this bill basically updates the Code of Virginia to streamline the bus stop installation process or procedure along state-owned highways, roadways, and right-of-way to create a more uniform process. The plans are and specification for bus shelter is asking that those that do not exceed 256 square feet to be constructed for transit agency, that they wouldn't have to go to extensive process in terms of addressing that. And so basically, we're just trying to create a better environment for people to get on the bus, get off the bus, and they know that we are doing everything to prepare those places.
Thank you. And I see you've got some witnesses. Are you all waiting to speak for the bill? Why don't you come forward and introduce yourself and mention if you're with an organization too?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Danny Plugger representing the Virginia Transit Association, very much in support of this bill and giving people good places to go.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Dillard, Greater Richmond Transit Company, Central Virginia. We support this bill and ask that you do the same.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Richard Hankins with RVA Rapid Transit, and we also support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Wyatt Gordon from Virginia Conservation Network. We also support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any opposed to House Bill 285 who'd like to speak either in person or anyone waiting online? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Delegate McQuinn.
and the members of the committee, it is my understanding that this may not need, it shouldn't have to go to finance because the funds are already there. It's just a matter of, again, pulling down those funds to do the work once we identify those places.
I appreciate that, but it's on the list that I got from finance staff. So.
Okay, well, then there you have it.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second to report and refer to Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
Yes.
Okay.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Be kind to my bills when I get upstairs, please. Okay. And is Delegate Hayes, you had another bill? I'm sorry.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman. I do have another bill, HB 1207.
Okay.
Landlord-Tenant Act.
1207. Okay. Yes, this is similar to a bill that we had here, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Senator Lucas is 588.
Similar to Senator Lucas's 588. I understand that we need to conform your bill to 588 to correct a citation. Is that correct, Counsel?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion and a second to conform the bills. Indicate your preference by saying aye.
Aye.
Or if you're opposed, say nay. Okay, the bill's conformed. So now it's identical to a bill that passed general laws with amendments 11-2 and reported it passed the Senate as well. Okay, is there anything you want to remind us about this bill or?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is just a measure to get rid of some problems that we're having in regards to decisions being made about housing and approval of access to housing. That's pretty much exasperating the situation that we have of homelessness and folks not being able to be housed. So we're simply saying if you are attempting to conform to Virginia's affordable housing measures and you're receiving benefit from that from tax credits, that you not be allowed to ask certain questions about one's past criminal records.
Okay, thank you. Is there questions or is there anyone here waiting to speak for this bill that's already passed this committee? Okay, that gave the thumbs up. There's a motion to report and a second. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Okay, I see we've got some other patrons in the queue, starting with Delegate Wilt. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
Is this 1241?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I was under the impression it was identical to Senator Obenshain's Senate Bill 600, except for maybe a comma.
Yeah, well, there's two subdivisions that need to be fixed, C2 and C3, but I believe the words are the same in the bill. So first I'll entertain a motion to conform 1241 to SB 600.
Moved.
Okay. Is that okay with you?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So all in favor of conforming HB 1241 to SB 600, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now it's identical to Senator Obenshain's Real Estate Timeshare Act partial termination of certain timeshares.
Move to report.
Okay, motion and second to report. please indicate your preference. Is there anyone waiting? Well, we're moving along today.
Not anymore.
Okay. Well, we've taken testimony on the cognate. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Thank you.
Next before you is House Bill 1018. It explicitly allows the Office of the Attorney General's office, the Tobacco Enforcement Section, investigators to remove unstamped cigarettes when conducting investigations. That's they just want to nail that down that that
To
right
remove
is
contraband
explicit for them.
cigarettes that are unstamped.
Yes.
Okay. There's a motion, but I should ask first if there's anyone here who wants to speak to this particular bill, 1018. And let us know if anyone's online waiting to do so. No. Okay. There's a motion to report and a second. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
Okay. Next, I've got Delegate Owen. Welcome. Is this the HB 1005?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I was under the impression this was identical to House Bill Senate Bill 560 by Senator Hackworth.
Okay. Okay. Is council? Is that identical, or we're going to check on that? This was the bill reverting to federal governance of the regulations concerning
the RRP program that EPA is currently administering, and we have not been administering for the last 15 years. So this just repeals that original law passed 15 years ago and codifies what we're actually been doing for the last 15 years, so that EPA will continue to administer the program, and we do not need state regulations.
Okay. And we heard about this from Senator Hackworth when we passed his version unanimously.
Yes, sir.
So let's, I'll entertain a motion on HB 1005.
The delegate's first bill.
This may be the delegate's first bill, but this is going to be a long meeting, so we don't.
I'm joking.
Okay. Okay. There's a motion to report and a second.
Second.
And a second. So we'll proceed to vote.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
We saved you some hazing. Remember that when you have a close vote of mine on the floor. Okay, next we've got Delegate Coiner.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I have two bills. Do you have a preference as to 1083 is fine?
Okay.
Okay,
1083. Which one do you want to take
It's up on
first?
the board. It's I can
Okay,
go first.
we'll start
It's
with
fine.
1083. Okay,
Come
the
on
first
now.
one is a renaming of an office and shifting some duties.
It's a re-election. We're on 1083.
Right. Okay, 1083. Okay.
Let's go on to finance. Get the reports.
Wait, we haven't.
Got to go to finance.
This is House Bill 1083. The appropriate motion after the delegate makes her presentation would be to refer to Finance and Appropriations Committee, but go ahead and explain the bill, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill does rename the longitudinal data system, but more importantly, it makes a shift over to VOE, where that data can be better analyzed in an unbiased manner, where state agencies aren't connected and VOE is independent. We're able to really, for the first time ever, be able to see our data from our early childhood education all the way through workforce, better see what's happening with our students receiving financial aid and how their outcomes are with the best jobs in Virginia, and be more effective in our support of our students most in need. That's what the bill does.
Thank you. Are there questions for Delegate Coiner? Okay, is there anyone here waiting to speak on this bill? Okay, is there a motion? There's a motion to report and re-refer to Finance, 1083. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Okay. That bill reports.
Thank
You had
Mr.
another bill?
Chair. My next bill is House Bill 652.
Okay, 652.
Nope.
Okay, please explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So under current law, if there is a dispute with next of kin, our statute currently says you go to the court and you ask the court to intervene. But it doesn't provide any direction to what the funeral home does in the meantime. So what we've provided is that any next of kin that is in disagreement with the arrangements being made can basically hit a pause button by serving notice to the funeral home, and the funeral home will hit pause while they work out the disagreement amongst the next of kin. The second part of the bill allows the funeral home to accept as proof of your next of kin a copy of your will, even if it hasn't been probated. That's what the bill does, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I've got a question about Section C, where it says at least one of the next of kin shall notify the funeral establishment of a dispute. Wouldn't it make more sense that the person who's contracting with the funeral service be responsible for notifying? Because when you say at least one of the next of kin shall make a notification that they're having a dispute, if you're having a dispute, I'm not sure who would to take on that responsibility.
Mr. Chair, not necessarily. So our statute provides a laundry list of individuals who are considered next of kin. Our current law puts them all on equal footing. And so you may show up with your money, as we're brother and sister, you show up and you put the money down in hour one, and I show up and say, Mom wanted different funeral arrangements and I disagree with you. It allows me to hit a pause button just because you put money down first. That funeral home may go, well, wait, this may not be what needs to be done, and it allows anyone in the next of kin to be able to hit a pause button so that disagreements can be worked out.
Okay. Are there people here today to speak in support of HB 652? Welcome.
Good afternoon. Angie Bezick on behalf of the Virginia Funeral Directors Association. We thank the delegate for calling and working with us on her bill, and we do support the bill as it's drafted. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Scott Johnson on behalf of Services Corporation International, I associate my remarks with Ms. Bezick. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Johnson. I'm still getting, on line 25, it says, if there's a dispute, at least one of the next of kin within 48 hours shall notify the funeral service. How are they going to know which of them is supposed to notify the funeral service?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think as the delegate indicated, you never know if it's the first person who comes that's causing the dispute to the funeral home versus it's another relative that comes in later. And so we wanted to give a variety of pathways for the funeral home to be notified. The person who doesn't like what's going on, I guarantee you 9 times out of 10 is going to be the one to tell the funeral home, I don't like this, I want to stop, we're not in agreement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the committee or? Oh, welcome. Come, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mariah Fitzhugh on behalf of the Independent Funeral Homes of Virginia, we support this bill and thank the delegate.
Okay, is there anyone here to speak against HB 652, either in person or online?
Move to report.
Okay, there's a motion. Second. And a second to report HB 652. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you. Okay, so 652 reports, and then we've got Delegate Herring. Thank you for being patient.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 782 has to do with the Office of Attorney General's Civil Rights Investigations. And this bill comes from the Virginia Bar Association. Both defense attorneys, employment defense and plaintiff's attorneys got together and tried to align. The issue that we're having is a misalignment of our timelines and procedures for discrimination investigations by the Office of Civil Rights and the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So this bill makes a better alignment on times to file complaints and appeals. Of complaints, and then having an investigation by the Office of Attorney General. The Office Attorney General does have an amendment, you'll have, yes, that was recommended, which is actually a very good amendment, I think, because it's intended to address concerns that the previous language may have altered the statute of limitations for the pregnancy claims.
There's a second on the amendment, so all in favor, please.
Line 47, after office, strike capital A and insert unless otherwise stated in this chapter, comma, A. The second, at the beginning of line 50, strike or the Attorney General. And the third, on line 50, after manner, strike file and insert initiate.
Okay, the amendments have been read. All in favor of adopting the amendments as read, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we now have the amended bill before us. Are there those here who would like to testify in support of HB 782 or online? Okay. Any against? Okay, is there a motion?
Move to report as amended.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to report HB 782 as amended. Please indicate on the voting board your preference.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Delegate. Okay, next we've got Delegate LaVere Bowling. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello. Is this 933?
This is.
Okay, so let's direct our attention to HB 933 and Delegate LaVere Bowling.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Before you is House Bill 933, and this bill simply directs several agencies to establish dementia-specific training standards, now growing it to 911 dispatchers, firefighters, and paramedics, hopefully getting that training before they enter into the community. We know that first responders interact with people with Alzheimer's while searching for a lost individual, stopping drivers who might exhibit unsafe driving, rescuing people from dementia abuse, and intervening in crisis or disaster situations. Education of the disease and proper training can often effectively address crisis situations and ensure the safety of the individuals with dementia, as well as the safety of our first responders. So with the passage of HB 933, the legislation is going to complete and unify training that you all already enacted prior to. Right now it covers law enforcement, but now again, we're going to expand it to 911 dispatchers, firefighters, and paramedics. And so I ask for your support on the bill.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
But it can be, if you want it to be.
Those opposed to House Bill 933? Anyone here to support House Bill 933? All right, there's a motion and a second to report House Bill 933. Clerk, please open the roll.
Ayes 14, no 0.
I got away. Thank you.
All right, next up in the queue, we have Delegate Cousins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, subcommittee members, or committee members. Okay, thank you. So I'm here to present HB 1251. Too many families, first, the Virginia Residential Landlord-Tenant Act requires that landlords maintain safe and habitable rental properties. Too many families are living in homes with maintenance issues that impact their health and safety, which are going ignored and unfixed by their landlords. However, under current statute, tenants cannot file a suit if they are not current on their rent, regardless of how much they owe. This essentially denies tenants access to the court system, which allows landlords to continue to collect rent while avoiding accountability for failing to provide safe and habitable housing. So this bill removes the requirement that tenants be current on rent to file a tenant's assertion. This strengthens tenants' ability to access the judicial system and to enforce their right under the Virginia Residential Landlord-Tenant Act to live in a safe home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions of the delegates? Those in opposition to 1251, please come forward. Those in support of House Bill 1251. If you want to come up, all right. We got a long list. We want to do thumbs ups, or all right. We have 7. Well, 7 times 2, 14 thumbs up. All right. And one on the back I missed. 15. Thank you. All right. All right. There's a motion and a second to report House Bill 1251. Clerk, please open the roll.
Ayes 9, no 6.
All right. That bill reports.
Thank you.
All right, next in queue is Delegate Owen. You have another bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 350. This simply changes the mix of the quorum for the Board of Architects and Professional Engineers. Currently, you need 9 of 15 members, but you also need a specific mix of the members. And what's occurring on this board, when they have cases come before them, usually one of the members is involved in the case in the presentation, and it requires them to recuse themselves. So if you have an engineer that has to work on one of the cases, and they recuse themselves, there are 3 engineers on the board, that means 100% of the engineers need to be there for the quorum. So what this does is changing it from 2 of the engineers, architects, and landscape architects to 1 of each, like matches the other members of the board. So it really simplifies and helps. The board has asked for this because they've had some cases where they did not have a quorum, had to postpone the case, and the statute of time almost ran before they get the case back forward. So if we make this change, they'll be able to execute their duties for the cases, and it doesn't change the total number they need, just the mix.
Any opposition to House Bill 350? Any questions from the committee to the patron?
Move to report. Second.
There's a motion and a second to report House Bill 350. Clerk, please open the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members.
Ayes 15, no 0.
All right, that bill reports. Next up is Delegate Fegans.
It is my second time. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. House Bill 1361, the Virginia Public Procurement Act, puts Virginia preference first, prioritizes Virginia manufactured goods, gives Virginia manufactured goods a price matching option, and requires a reciprocal preference statute be applied to all manufactured goods. This is the companion bill to SB 260 for Senator DeSteph. The only difference is mine has the reenactment clause when it came out of the House.
Mr. Chair,
Delegate Air.
so are we going to conform this to the version? Yeah. So I'll make that motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to conform to the Senate version. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That bill is now conformed, and if it's to report, it's to re-refer to finance.
So moved.
All right, there's a motion and a second to report and re-refer to finance. Clerk, please open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you, committee members.
All right, next up we have Delegate Jones. All right, there you are. Come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. HB 33 would require that vacancies on the Council on Environmental Justice be filled by August 31st of this year. The bill clarifies language that The council may travel throughout the Commonwealth to record conditions relating to human health and the environment. It also addresses conflicts of interest relating to requirements for other staff to be present at council meetings.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reeves.
I believe there's 2 amendments for this, and I'd so move
Yes,
the
sir.
amendments.
All right. Council, do you want to report the amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On line 47, after act, insert comma, other than a vacancy occurring by the expiration of a term, comma, and on line 47, after filled, insert for the unexpired term.
All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt the amendments. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the amendments are properly before the committee. Delegate Jones.
Thank you. That's pretty much all we have as it relates to this particular bill. It just allows them to meet and then have positions filled in an expeditious manner by August 31st of this year.
All right, those here that are in opposition to House Bill 333 as amended, please come forward. All right, no opposition as
Move to
amended.
report as amended.
All right, there's a motion and a second to re-refer to finance. Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That bill reports as amended and re-refers to finance. Enjoy. Next up, we have Delegate Reeser. All right. Never sit behind the podium. The chair cannot see you. We will call right past you. Lesson. All right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. HB 105 is just a really simple bill to fix a couple of inadvertent mistakes. The DPOR pointed out that at line 39, the words disclosure packet should be stricken and resale certificate should be inserted. And at line 36, there is a new reference to 2 code sections to include condo and co-op associations, which were also inadvertent exclusions.
All right, Council, do you have those amendments?
That is the bill.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No,
Want to make sure we're clarifying there. Thank you.
Move to report.
As a motion and a second to report House Bill 105. Before we do that, any opposition? All right, there's a motion and a second to report. Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, that bill reports. Next up is Delegate Glass.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Van Valkenburg.
So for House Bill 576, which is on page, where is that? Page 10. That needs to conform to my Senate Bill 313. We conformed on the other side of the Capitol this morning. So we would need to conform 576 to Senate Bill 313. Yeah.
So you're moving?
Yeah, so I would move that we conform House Bill 576 to Senate Bill 313.
All right, there's a motion and a second to conform House Bill 576 to the Senate version. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Okay, now that can conform to my bill, that bill passed out 40-0 and is around consumer protection around solar panels for residential housing.
Move to report.
Second. All right, there's a motion and a second to report House Bill 576 substitute.
They just made that bill. Well, she's here.
Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 11, noes 4.
Gratitude.
All right, Delegate Glass, you have another bill.
So I have, this is the same, that's the same one.
5-7.
Got it. All right, sorry. There it is, I have the right one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So House Bill 584 is a reciprocal data sharing agreement. The goal of this is to just have a comprehensive approach to enhancing government analysis of data for with a special emphasis on veterans, targeting data sharing initiatives. All it's asking is that organizations like Department of Education, DMV, DOC, all share information with the Department of Veteran Services in an effort to provide better services to veterans across the Commonwealth.
Any opposition to House Bill 589? All right, there's a motion and a second to report the bill. Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Gratitude, Mr. Chair.
That bill reports. Next up, Delegate McClure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. HB 817 strengthens protections for tenants facing retaliation from their landlord. Too many Virginia families put up with unsafe living conditions and harassment from their landlords simply out of the fear that they will lose their housing if they speak up. The current definition of retaliation in the Virginia Residential Landlord Tenant Act is limited in scope, and it leaves out common forms of retaliatory behavior such as harassment, coercion, and the unequal enforcement of rules. HB 817 gives the code teeth by expanding the list of retaliatory acts. It also removes the burdensome requirement that the tenant prove the landlord's intent in order to succeed on a retaliation claim. We have worked really hard with all the stakeholders, including large and small landlords, to be part of these discussions, and we have peace on the Valley on this bill. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I hope that you vote favorably for HB 817.
Thank you. Are there members of the panel with questions before we turn to testimony? Okay. Are there those here today who'd like to speak in support of House Bill 817? Please come forward and tell us your affiliation and your name.
Chair, members of the committee, Laura Dobbs with Housing Opportunities Made Equal. I want to thank the delegate for bringing the bill, and we support it. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Monica Sarmiento. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Coalition for Immigrant Rights, and our organization fully supports this bill.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and we also support the bill.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Sheila Herlihy with the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. We also support this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Catherine Cohn with the Legal Aid Justice Center, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. Kashish with New Virginia Majority, and we also support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any opposed to House Bill 817, either online or in person? Okay. There's a motion and a second to report House Bill 817. Unless there are questions, we'll proceed to vote.
I tried, but ayes 9, no 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Next, did we hear from Delegate Runyon yet?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
This is House Bill 1337.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I think we have some technical amendments for you all to consider.
Yes. Could the council read the amendments, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. These amendments conform this bill to the Senate version. On line 352, after holding, strike A, inactive, and insert A. Line 353, do the same thing. And on line 364, strike all of lines 364 and 365.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to take up the technical amendments. Please indicate your support by saying aye. Or opposition. Okay. So the amended bill is before us now. And Delegate, why don't you tell us more about it?
So this is basically a technical bill, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. It adjusts the various sections of the Code of Virginia targeting operation powers and duties of the Board of Accountancy. It expands the Secretary's responsibility, allows for electronic transfers and efficiency. It improves the criminal history record information dissemination process, tightens up professional standards and licensing, and adjusts the board's duties and composition and enforcement powers. It has a lot going on.
Okay, and this is, I believe, identical now in the posture it's in to a bill from Senator Hackworth, SB 463. Council's now identical with our amendments? Okay.
That's correct.
There's a motion and a second to report. Unless there are questions, we'll proceed to vote. Okay.
Ayes 11, noes 4.
Okay. And next I've got in the queue Delegate Martinez. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to come forward on this bill, HB 195. Essentially what it does is it defines casino to be what is in the Virginia Lottery's language. It's to strengthen consumer protections when unregulated gambling facility puts casino on it, and those unregulated gambling sites, I guess the bottom line is when you define yourself as a casino, there are a lot of regulations and data and protections that you have to do, and we want to make sure that when somebody puts casino in their name, in their business name, that they are adhering to the Virginia Lottery's requirements, and that there is a civil penalty for those facilities that don't do that. And that's essentially it. We're trying to protect the consumers from being wrong advertising, wrongfully, or however you want to put it. But that's the bill.
Thank you. And this bill has been requested by Finance, so if successful, the motion would be to report and refer. Are there questions from members of the committee? Senator Van Valkenburg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I guess I'd ask the delegate. So this is saying anybody who has a license for gambling that's not a casino can't use the word casino, or they will be punished with a fine.
Correct. And I will add a caveat that we did amend the bill to exclude, for example, a gambling site that already uses casino in the word, or in their I forget which one it was, but we grandfathered that in. I'm trying to remember if it's FanDuel or DraftKings.
Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you. So I guess I'm wondering, Mr. Chair, why casinos can, any number of businesses can be, in terms can be used kind of as a catchphrase. It's too late in the day for me to be clever about one, but where they're using the word even though people know they're not using it. I guess I'm wondering why we would want to just box one word off for everybody to use. It doesn't seem very First Amendment cool to me.
Mr. Chair?
First, Senator Reeves and then Senator Aird.
Mr. Chairman, the reason this bill is needed is because there are legitimate casinos that have spent millions of dollars become a casino. There's a reason why Rosie's isn't called casinos. And if you'd like to see a facility that's using the name casino on it, and it's nothing short of, it's not a casino, it's on East Gray Street about 4 blocks this way. As you walk towards some of the restaurants there, if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see a place that has been set up with some games inside of it, and they use the term casino. So it's there to prevent those type of facilities coming online and saying they're casinos and strip centers and everywhere else. So it's trying to protect the brand of our legitimate casinos inside the Commonwealth.
Mr. Chair.
It's Senator Aird, and then we'll come back to Senator Van Valkenburg.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I think I'm trying to figure out, is this a problem that's occurring right now in the Commonwealth? What is the problem we're trying to solve?
This bill was brought to me by the casinos and who want to have that term protected for future things that may be going on and for some of the skill games that are going on today. And they're just trying to make sure that they have to pay all these registration fees and so forth to Virginia Lottery, and they just want to protect the term for their casinos, for legitimate, what we consider legitimate casinos.
Okay, we've got Senator Van Valkenburg, and then I've got Senator French.
Speaking to the bill, Mr. Chair, I guess I have a hard time being okay with punishing a business for doing this. I mean, we're about to legalize, which is is what we can do. I mean, we're going to have truck stops that can have 7 or however many machines they're going to end up with. Why can't they call themselves the Truck Stop Casino? I don't see why we should stop them from being able to do that. I don't think that someone's going to confuse them with the Hard Rock Casino. So I'm going to be voting, or Hard Rock, whatever it is. So I don't know that we should be in the policing words business.
Thank you for the view. Okay, Senator French.
Mr. Chair, in our community, not routinely, but occasionally we have casino night, like at the fire departments and even some churches. How
That takes it to a whole new level.
how does that play into it, I guess?
Well, I'm going to let the delegate answer, but I think they could call themselves a Las Vegas night or something, but they wouldn't be able to call themselves a casino under this. And I think the idea that the delegate's getting at is that we have four or so or 5 authorized casinos in Virginia, and people assume that a casino entails certain things. And that's what I think he's getting at. But do you want to add to that?
That's correct. We want to make sure that consumers aren't misled by the term casino. When you say casino, you're not just thinking of the skill games that are currently happening. There's all kinds of different gambling, horse betting, and so forth in a casino, and they pay for that right to call themselves casinos.
Okay. Are there those who would like to speak in support of this bill? I don't know if I called for testimony. Okay. Anyone against? Any other discussion from members of the committee? Any motions? There's a motion to report, and do I hear a second?
Yes, it's going to find it.
Oh, yeah, it would be report and we refer. Was there a second? Yes. Okay. Okay, motion and a second. So we'll vote on whether or not to report this bill as. Oh. Okay. Okay, there's a second. So we'll proceed to vote on HB 195.
Ayes 7, no 7.
The irony is that this happened in my last bill in the courts. And no, I understand. I'll have to figure out what I do next for the bill, but I appreciate the opportunity to. And I will say that I'm really encouraged by the agility and endurance some of these members have running between committees and stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate. Okay, Delegate Delaney, I believe, is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, committee. I have HB 764 before you
Yes,
today.
let's turn our attention to 764 and Delegate Delaney.
So when victims are caught in a lease agreement with an abusive family member, there is recourse under current law to terminate that lease without repercussions for the victim. However, this is only if it is a family abuse protective order on the books or a criminal conviction. This does nothing for victims who may be dealing with abusive non-family members, such as romantic partners or stalkers. Current statute as written also prolongs the amount of time a victim will be bound by their lease and bound to their abuser, even after being granted a lease termination. In these situations, victims may need to get out quickly, and they shouldn't have to worry about the financial burden of continuing to rent somewhere they cannot live or the repercussions of breaking their lease. So this bill allows a tenant who is a victim of sexual assault or domestic violence from a non-family member to terminate their obligations under the lease agreement with a general district court protective order. It also amends the timeline for termination so that it is effective 30 days after the written notice is provided.
Second.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to report, and then I'm going to turn to Senator Reeves for a question.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate, is this just a temporary protective order or a permanent protective order?
Mr. Chairman, I would answer the senator as a permanent protective order. So the current law allows a permanent protective order that's received in family court. What we're adding to this code section, and the code section referenced in the language before you, the victim has obtained a protective order pursuant to, and then that 19.2-152.10 is the permanent protective order code section.
So, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
Senator Reeves.
Question for counsel. Does that clarify that it's 2 years or more? Does that code section? I'm not familiar with the 19.2-152.10 code section.
19.2-152.10 also is, as she said, is the permanent protective order. It can also be issued for a specified period of time up to a maximum of 2 years, and then it can be extended. Subsection C of that code section, it can issue a protective order to the victim and may be issued for any reasonable period of time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We didn't take testimony before we had the motion, but before we vote on the motion, are there those waiting to speak in support or just want to indicate your support? Okay. We have one person online. Why don't you please give us your testimony and unmute.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Molly Montague, and I am here on behalf of the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, also known as RAIN. RAIN is the nation's largest anti-sexual assault organization and created and operates the National Sexual Assault Hotline. In 2022, over 1 million people were victims of intimate partner violence, and over 950,000 people were victims of domestic violence. Furthermore, 55% of all instances of sexual assault occur at or near a survivor's home, according to RAIN. Homes should be a safe haven, but victims may not choose to pursue lease termination due to financial burden. We urge you to vote in favor of HB 764, which provides survivors with a route to escape their dangerous homes. Thank you, and thank you to Delegate Delaney for carrying this bill.
Thank you, Ms. Montague. Questions or motions?
Mr. Chairman, before we vote,
we had a motion. Yeah.
I just want to tell the delegate I'm going to throw up a abstain because I'm worried that we're going to include temporary in this definition, and that can be abused, as I've learned as a law enforcement officer, when we get to he said, she said, and who has to leave. So I'm just letting you know that if we could clarify it to just be permanent.
And Mr. Chair, the intent of my bill is to limit it to permanent protective. My understanding when I had this drafted in the House was that it was by that line on 19, the victim has obtained a protective order pursuant to, and then that code section, that was the permanent protective order code section. If there's concern, one idea could be adding the word permanent protective order on that same line to ensure that we're limiting it to permanent.
I think council's given us a nod. She can make that happen. So if that's the case, I'd make that motion.
Okay, wait. First, there's a motion and a second to add the word permanent after A and before protective order. But then before we vote on that, Senator Rouse, is it relevant to this portion?
It is. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, the concern, I understand the concern around temporary and permanent, but also I just want to keep in mind of the potential
someone who's being abused and the potential harm that's being done. And not often, but in cases, there have been victims who have gotten a temporary order and that order was not even sufficient enough to protect their lives, theirs or their family lives. And so we shouldn't cross hairs with whether it be temporary or permanent, because the judge is still going to make that decision whether to offer or grant that temporary or permanent order. The focus should be on making sure that we are providing safety for those who are seeking a temporary or protective order. We need to err on the side of safety for potential victims instead of side of landlords and owners. Because again, I know from personal experience where I haven't seen, but I know from personal where I had very close personal experience, family members who had a family member who was killed in a domestic violence incident. And so on a temporary order. So I just want to make sure we are not, I understand we want to protect property rights for landlords and stuff, but we should err on the side of caution for potential victims and not necessarily landlords. So I'll be objected against an amendment to just make it permanent. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator McPike.
It's my understanding that the patron stated that the amendment clarifies the intent of the underlying bill and is not harmful.
Mr. Chair, yes, and I absolutely respect and in many ways in philosophy stand with Senator Rouse's remarks. And when I introduced this bill originally, it was much more expansive to include other forms of protective orders and opportunities to petition for this lease termination. I did bring this bill out of the House with the assurance that my goal this year with this piece of legislation was to limit it to protective order, which did put it in the posture to have the support that it does have from stakeholders. And so while, again, I think philosophically we are indeed aligned, I do want to be forthcoming with the intent of this bill is to, at this time, to limit it to permanent protective orders, as in good faith that was how I represented it to my colleagues in the House, and was hoping that the language before us did that, and having that further assurance to guarantee that my intent is what the words on paper say to all of our stakeholders as well. I would accept that amendment.
All in favor of adding the word permanent to line 19, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I think the ayes have it. And now we can proceed to hear. We had a motion on the bill before, but just to be clear, the bill is amended. There's a motion to report in a second. Okay. Senator Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking to the bill.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just the one thing I would just note with this is because we've got something that is making progress here, and this is a good thing that we have before us, there is still, of course, next year and years to follow to take what Senator Rouse has said, and see if maybe we can continue building on this, in the future. And at the same time, I don't want to cause any harm to the bill as is today, and a step forward is a good step forward. So today's a good day to get it done.
Thank you. Okay, so please indicate your preference on reporting HB 764 as amended on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senators.
Okay, and I've got in the queue next, Senator Craig.
Having voting on the prevailing side, I wish we passed HB 338. I ask that we reconsider that vote.
Mr. Chairman.
There was a motion to reconsider 338, and was there a second to that? Okay, and a second. And Delegate Rome, you want to speak to that motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would disagree with the motion. Respecting the patron, or respecting the senator who's made the motion, and understanding the second, and the fact that the bill that had come before us already, as speaking to the motion here, they had the consideration of whether or not they were going to do anything different in the House on this already in terms of sending it to JLARC, anywhere else. That debate has already happened. We are already at the point now where we've taken a vote on this. We've moved it forward because it is in a fundamentally different posture than my bill was prior to it.
Okay, I think you're debating the bill, but it's customary that if someone wants to have a revote, that we allow for that if they were on the prevailing side. So first, we're going to take a vote on whether or not to reconsider HB 338, the vote that we recommended reporting.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Okay, so that bill is up for reconsideration.
Chairman, I would ask that
Senator
the bill
Reeves.
go by for the day.
Okay, so there's a motion that the bill go by for the day, perhaps to allow for further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Okay. That bill will go by for the day. We'll be back here next week. Okay. Next, we've got Delegate Tran. I believe you had an identical or cognate. Let's see.
Thank you so much, Senator. I do have a cognate to your Senate Bill 422, and I would like to conform my bill to yours.
Okay, is there a motion to conform? Okay. We're voting on conforming HB 993 to SB 422. Please signify your support by saying aye. Aye. Or opposition? Okay, so that bill is now identical to the fees for, why don't you explain it again?
Sure. I would just like to say the differences in the two bills was my version had a couple of double negatives, and so council from the House thought that the Senate version was cleaner and easier to follow. But essentially what the bill does is prohibit landlords from requiring a fee when tenants pay their rent if they don't offer any other options. So now you could have an option that has a fee attached to it if you provide an option like to pay by check or money orders that is free. And also it prohibits landlords from requiring a fee when they're coming in to check routine maintenance and such. So we came to an agreement. We have peace in the valley between advocates for tenants as well as our landlord associations.
So with that discussion, is there a motion on HB 993 as amended? Okay, motion and second to report as amended. Please indicate your preference on the voting board.
I'm trying. Hold on, give me a second. Get it together,
Ayes 9, no 6.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members.
Thank you. And thank you. Delegate Thomas, you're still here, and I apologize. I didn't realize you had that second bill, which is HB 1190. This is the Contractors Board bill.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, if successful, the motion would be to report and refer to finance. Why don't you tell us about it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Spicy day in general laws. I will be brief since we're coming to the end. So the problem, we have a lot of folks here in the Commonwealth, particularly Northern Virginia and in my district, that would like to enter the construction field, the contracting field. They are qualified, they are experienced. The only thing holding them back is a language barrier. So what this bill would do is to provide that the contracting exams are administered in other languages. And it does so in what we think is a pretty pragmatic way. The mechanism that we use to decide which languages are chosen is one that any language eventually could qualify for, and that is what we use to print under the Voting Rights Act. Just for everyone's information, currently the languages that would qualify would be Spanish and Vietnamese. The second item that we use in order to keep the fiscal impact relatively low is that it would only be for the exams that have over 50 administrations per year. This is so we don't spend all this money on exams that maybe 2 people will take in an entire year period. And that is the solution to this problem. Is anyone ready for any questions?
Thank you. Are there those in presence who would like to speak for this legislation? Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Chris McDonald with Williams Mullen, speaking on behalf of the Associated General Contractors of Virginia. We support this bill and think it's a good way to get a lot of new people into the workforce here in Virginia. So we hope you'll move it forward. Thank you.
Is there anyone else waiting in line on this bill? Okay. And is there anyone who wants to speak against it? So I have a motion and a second to report finance. So we'll proceed to vote on the motion.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Yeah, I know. For this one, good.
We have others waiting beside you. Please tell the chair. Okay. Delegate Sickles isn't here, but he explained this bill to me, which I'm going to try and do with the committee. We'll turn our attention to House Bill 1178, which is dealing with the Commonwealth Innovation and Partnership Authority Board. What the bill does is it allows appointments by the Senate Rules Committee and the Speaker of the House to the board to enlarge it a bit, and perhaps, and further, it prohibits any member of the board from investing personal funds in venture capital projects that are supported by the authority. In other words, if you have a vote on investing state funds in a project, you would be investing your own personal funds as well, have a potential conflict or inducement to put state funds in. Are there other questions about that bill, or any questions or comments? Is there any member of the public waiting to speak on HB 1178? Okay.
Move to report this party line vote.
There's a motion and second to report HB 1178. We'll go ahead and vote on the vote.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Okay. Now we've got we have one bill left. What was that number? 133. It was two left. Is that one the one that you're going on, or another one? 818. 818. Oh, so this is the no, that's a different bill. It's in the similar. This one right here, 1A? Okay, great. So this is a bill that is similar to Senator Stewart's SB 415, and I spoke to Delegate Cherry earlier today. He'd like to conform it to the Senate version so they can go to conference. Okay, let's wait. First off, let's hear from, I just want to express Delegate, he wanted to conform to the Senate bill so they could, that was the discussion earlier. And I understand as Representative West Council's here, do you want to comment further?
This is, yes, hello.
Hi, welcome. Do you want to shed any light on this particular bill?
My name is Joe Underwood, Senior Attorney with the FOIA Council. I'm sorry, I was checking an email regarding your question. What is the concern?
HB 818, we had heard from Delegate Cherry that he wanted to conform it to SB 415 from Senator Stewart. Is that one that you all have taken a position on?
They have discussed this bill. I don't know the difference of the two versions, and being both members of the FOIA Council, Senator Stewart and Delegate Cherry, I would not want to intervene between their negotiations.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
That's what he'd like.
Senator Locke has a question first.
Joe, the one that's both Cherry and Stewart had did come out as the recommendation of the council.
Stewart had a separate bill regarding the political party attending meetings. The members, more than 3 members, have eligibility to attend a political party.
So I'm sorry.
Senator Locke.
Chair, was the one that Delegate Cherry had the the recommendation of the council?
Yes, and this one started out as both of those were recommended by the council, if I remember this one correctly. This one is dealing with going back to make sure everything that was taking place during the COVID price issues there was held during FOIA-ish, during Open Meetings Act, during the COVID, would be ratified to be acceptable, be approved, kind of retroactively.
So let me ask council, so are they different?
Yes.
Okay.
These are the differences.
Oh, my goodness. The
So,
blue
yeah,
stuff?
they're both as a result of.
So this is the one we wanted. We wanted
Right.
this, the House version.
So this is Chair's bill now.
Okay,
Yes,
well,
Senator Stewart's was dealing with the, it was a Galls versus We Are case, resulting in having an open meeting with more than 3 members attending a meeting.
thank you. We'll just be at ease for just a moment.
Yes.
We're gonna take this by bill. We're gonna take this by bill by for the week so we can. Oh, Ms. Ryan, why don't you come forward and explain?
I think we passed the House version.
Phyllis can back me up here if I. Senator Locke has SB 36, and when it passed out of here, it was in a substituted version that was identical to this HB 18. So those are the two that are similar. Yesterday, the House conformed 36 to 818. So I would think that in today's meeting, you would conform 818 to 36. Meanwhile, Senator Stewart had a bill that was related, but he wanted it different. He wanted it separate, and it had to do with being able to go to meetings of political parties specifically. It didn't deal with all this definitional stuff, and there was no House counterpart on that particular bill. So I think you would want to do 818 to 36.
Okay, and if we conform,
No,
but
as it is.
if we were to
As it is, right?
if we were
I
to
mean, I didn't mean to say what you should do, but I just want to make sure that those are the two bills that were similar, not Stewart's 415.
Mr. Chair,
yes, let's pay attention to Joanne for a moment. She's got the floor.
we do not, since SB 36 was already conformed to the language in HB 818, they are identical now, so we do not have to conform 818 to anything.
So we just pass it.
So we can just pass it.
I see. Let's just take this by for the week to make sure we got this absolutely correct for next week.
The patron's not here.
Okay, and we'll get the patron here next week. Okay, and then what was remaining on the docket? 133. This bill was, yes. Should we take it by for the week, or Senator Rouse, are you familiar with this bill?
It needs to go to finance.
Oh, it does need to go to finance, so let's, but it's not a revenue bill, so it doesn't have to go by that deadline. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll take by HB 133 without objection, and with that, the committee will rise.
Nice job, Mr. Chairman. The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.